So the next topic is World Cup slash state of the market. I believe we are, what, 4 months away, right, from the World Cup. I think it's fair to say that there is not a lot of hype right now, but I also think this is related with no new product related with the World Cup. Actually, I was taking a look at the World Cup album, which tends to be a huge thing. People don't talk about that, but in Europe, collecting the album is something that is huge, and not only in Europe, also South America, etc. And I believe it will be August. So I can see automatic more people trying to engage the market around that time. And I feel like products like Prism 2022 for the World Cup can be a huge catalyst on the market. Even if right now there is not a lot of hype for the World Cup, and I'm probably quite alone on this because every time I go to Discord, there is a lot of bearish takes on this front. But I feel like there is still potentially with the World Cup, that there is still a scenario that we see a huge increase in soccer. Can I be wrong on this? Look, of course, in the end, if the market keeps crashing and crashing and crashing, this is a lost battle, you know, but I'm still optimistic, basically.
Yeah, so I started off very bearish in relation to what I've spoken about in terms of World Cup hype. And I think that's more of a take on the general market being in a down condition than it is on the World Cup specifically. But as we draw closer and closer to it, it sort of feels like it's going to be inevitable, right? Like the US men's national team is going to play England on Black Friday or whatever it is, the day after Thanksgiving. And that's going to do something, right? It feels inevitable that we are going to reach a point where, at least in America, for my country, I can't imagine a scenario where people aren't fully locked into Christian Pulisic, Giovanni Reina, Weston McKennie, and those sorts of guys. It feels inevitable that we'll get to a point where those are household names and everybody's going to be talking about that sort of thing. Not just from a card perspective, but as like a culture perspective, just because of how big the World Cup is going to be. So, I mean, even if we go back to the World Cup draw, the week of the draw and the week following that, prices saw a good bump. Like Christian Pulisic's 2016 Donruss Hollow rookie card went from like $800 to $1,000 just during the World Cup draw, and now it's treaded back to like the $600, $800 range. But just the World Cup draw brought it up 20%. So I don't know if the entire market's going to pull up, but I think very specific things could get a lot of hype and in the short term do very well for the World Cup. Something to monitor is I don't think Panini has put out a release date for 2022 Prism World Cup. And so given the supply issues that they've been having for both basketball and football, I wonder if they're not going to be able to release it in time for the tournament and it'll be released post-tournament, which would, in my opinion, would be awful and a complete nightmare. But this is what we've seen for the other sports, is that the main product has come out after the season is already over. We just got the Prism football product and the Super Bowl was 5 months ago. We haven't even gotten the NBA product yet for Panini Prism, and we're about to start the next season and we still don't have last season's Prism product. So I hope that Panini is fast tracking the World Cup Prism set, because I think that is integral to the hype for the World Cup. And if it's not there, I'm more bearish than I would be if it was.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's important for them to release the Prism set before the World Cup. Otherwise, who cares after the World Cup, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I already ended up talking about this, but right now on the market, you see a lot of people jumping from market to market. The F1 was a good example. Then I saw some people talking about wrestling cards, UFC cards. Then was Star Wars, then was Marvel. So I think there is a type of collector or flipper, whatever you want to call it, that tries to attack the market that have a lot of hype. And we can make an argument that that may not be the best for the market long run. But I also don't think it's that bad, because if more money end up entering the market, liquidity will increase in a lot of items. So mixed feelings on that front for sure. But I think the Prism set is a good example of set that can bring a lot of people to to the soccer card market, most likely to the ultra modern market. But we know, I mean, normally we tend to start with ultra modern. It's very rare that you know a guy that, you know what, I started in pre-war. That's crazy to think about. And probably that there is a couple of examples of people doing that, but it tends to be quite rare. I think starting in pre-modern is probably not that rare as people may think, but I still think the introduction will be the first Prism, the first Topps Chrome, stuff like that. So things take time, but of course, just makes too much sense. There will be a trickle-down effect if there is a huge boom on the ultra-modern market. So yeah, state of the market related with World Cup. I think the market is honestly not that bad right now. I was talking with you before I start hitting the record button that PWCC ended up doing very well yesterday. I mean, look, from a person that have money on stocks and crypto, I'm doing much better in cards right now. So it is what it is, basically. I was tracking the Cruyff, I was tracking the Maradona, and all of them end up selling for more than the previous camps with grades similar. Of course, high appealing, etc., is a different conversation. But I thought the market was quite strong. So,
yeah, I think in general we seem to be at a bottoming out point now. There's no telling if it's going to continue dropping from here because anything could happen. But at least right now, it seems like a lot of things are reaching a stabilization point. And I brought this up as well, I think previously, that PSA, as they're clearing the backlog and opening up new service levels, if you go to GemRate and you start looking at populations for key cards, the PSA 10 rate and the PSA 10 numbers are starting to stabilize on a lot of issues. Like Mbappe's Prism is starting to stabilize. Some Donruss cards are starting to stabilize. A lot of things are starting to stabilize in terms of how many PSA 10s are coming to market. So the floodgates are coming to an end in terms of the amount of slabs that are pouring onto the market. And so as we move into more of a recovery phase and a World Cup phase, I think that's nothing but good news to have less slabs coming back from PSA, of course.
I believe, again, don't quote me on this, but I believe PSA predicts that in the next 2-3 months, the backlog is done. So, I mean, we are seeing a light at the end at this point. I still have a lot of bulk submissions at PSA, more than 1 year. They are all at grading, but I also knew people talking about this that, look, sometimes they automatically go from Q2 basically to getting shipped. So I don't know. I hope I hope PSA is doing a good job with the backlog, because I think it's very important to have PSA flipping cards in a very fast way, because that increases. There is a lot of people that they need a bulk service that puts cards 3 months, or at least 3-4 months, and you get them back. I think that's quite important.